Well, we've got a little bit of a hot topic heating up in the NFL world, and it's not about the Lions or Bears. It's actually about the Minnesota Vikings. Justin Jefferson and his former quarterback, Sam Darnold, made some headlines. And let me tell you, Jefferson's comments have ignited debate across the league basically this entire week. And so let's start with the news. It's that Justin Jefferson openly admitted that he thinks the Vikings would have done better this season if they kept Sam Darnold. Wow. I mean, that's a pretty big statement coming from one of the most explosive playmakers in football. And also kind of a slap in the face, not only to J.J. McCarthy, but the Vikings in general. And Jefferson didn't dance around it. He said it straight up in a recent interview when asked whether Minnesota might have been better off retaining Darnold rather than going forward with McCarthy in 2025. And so I want you to think about how this lands, because the Vikings finished 9-8. They missed the playoffs too, same as the Lions, and subsequently fired their general manager. A front office shakeup that was widely linked to decisions about the quarterback room. Now, Jefferson's points centers on experience and chemistry. He talked about having a quarterback who already knew the playbook, the offense, pass catching weapons, which is obviously himself included, versus a situation where Minnesota handled the lineup of injured and inconsistent signal callers. And that's just football truth. And so let's break that down for a minute, because Jefferson's stats with Darnold were elite. In 2024, with Darnold under center, Jefferson posted 103 receptions for just over 1,500 yards and 10 TDs. That's all pro level production. And in contrast, last season, 2025, he put up just over 1,000 yards and he only got 2 touchdowns. And that was the lowest TD total of his career up to that point. And if you aren't a Vikings fan, but you play fantasy football and you had him, I'm sure you felt it, because he was one of those players where you're like, what's going on? I mean, that was kind of a season story. Reporters getting him in the locker room, like, what's going on? I mean, obviously Justin Jefferson doesn't feel like Justin Jefferson's the problem. But it wasn't just Jefferson's numbers. It was the Vikings' offensive continuity, because Darnold had a full season under Kevin O'Connell's system in Minneapolis. He'd built timing with Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. I mean, that connection, Jefferson was basically arguing, was real. And it showed up on tape and in the win column for the Vikings. Now, if you contrast that with a carousel at quarterback this past year, you got McCarthy battling injuries and inconsistency when he was available. Then you got backup Carson Wentz, who comes out from Minnesota and he sucks. And then undrafted rookie Max Brosmer saw action as well. I mean, that's not really a steadying presence. That's chaos under center. And Jefferson didn't sugarcoat any of this. I mean, he said the situation was tough to watch and that it's bittersweet seeing the player who was part of that 2024 run, Sam Darnold, now thriving on the biggest stage. And so here's where the narrative gets a little layered, because Darnold didn't just find a starting job after leaving Minnesota. He led the Seattle Seahawks to a Super Bowl berth. I'm sure Seattle's very happy to have him. That's a big-time bounce back for a guy whose career once included labels like draft bust. And so now he's in a position to win a championship. And Jefferson says he's happy for him, even if there's a twinge of regret about how things turned out in Minnesota. Now, I think some Jefferson defenders might say that he wasn't trying to throw J.J. McCarthy under the bus, but I think it kind of implies that. I think he did point out the difficulty of quarterbacking in the NFL. I think everybody knows that, especially for someone dealing with injuries and learning to fly. But he didn't shy away from the fact that stability with Darnold might have been the better choice for the Vikings this past season. I mean, how is that not a shot at McCarthy too? Basically saying that's the better guy, clear cut, Sam Darnold. And that's what's been buzzing on social platforms and talk shows alike, because what if Minnesota had stuck with Darnold? Could this franchise, now searching for a new GM and facing questions at the most important position in sports, be watching the Super Bowl from their couch instead of building for 2026? I mean, that what if is exactly what Jefferson's comments have spotlighted. And so I'm not saying Minnesota would have definitely been in the Super Bowl. There's far too many moving parts in the NFL, and obviously you can't rewrite history with perfect certainty, but the fact that Justin Jefferson, a perennial All-Pro, said yeah, for sure, when asked if the Vikings would have done better with Darnold, I think that's going to echo around the league, and it is. And speaking of that Super Bowl, since we're closing in on this topic just a few days away, let's talk about Sam Darnold in that game. Because Darnold has become one of the most compelling stories in sports. From being written off totally to earning a shot at the Lombardi Trophy. I mean, his narrative arc is incredible. He even had a lighthearted moment at Super Bowl opening night where the crowd serenaded him with Ham for Sam chants, which is a reminder of how much fun fans are having watching his resurgence. And so he isn't just a quarterback in this game. I mean, in many eyes, he's a favorite to win it. Analysts and odds makers are talking about him as a legit candidate to hoist that trophy. They're picking the Seahawks. I'm picking the Seahawks. And so considering where his career was just a few years ago, that's a remarkable turnaround. And Jefferson's respect, even while hinting at regret, shows just how big this moment is for Darnold personally and professionally. And so when you wrap all this up, the Vikings quarterback turmoil, which will be trickling into next year for sure, and Jefferson's candid comments and Sam Darnold's rise to the Super Bowl, you've got one of the most fascinating subplot arcs in the NFL this year. And it's the kind of storyline that makes fans debate, analysts scratch their heads, and sports radio hosts like myself find plenty to talk about. And so we'll be watching how this continues, especially since the Vikings are in the NFC. Obviously, we care about that because we mostly cover the Lions here. And even particularly as teams reconsider how they evaluate continuity versus upside at the most important position in sports. Keep it locked. You're listening to Midnight Sports Detroit.